Plumber shows up, takes a look at the issue, fix it in 15 minutes, charges you $300.
No, if you had the same AI tools, you would not be able to do the same thing that I can.
Everyone is a marketer. Everyone's a salesperson. They think they are, right? Until they actually do it.
Rarely talked about is the act of the human as the editor.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is December 16, 2024. You're listening and watching the Daily AI Show live. With me today, we have Jyunmi and Karl. I'm Brian. And today we're talking about the sort of challenge. This came off of an Ethan Mollick post on LinkedIn not too long ago, just last week, actually, talking about, the AI content generated challenge, or the idea that as businesses and industries charge for time investment, as AI makes the cost of doing business go down to near zero because it can read through, 1,000 different papers at once, what happens and what businesses break along the way when you have these problems. So before we jump into that conversation and we dive in and all the good stuff that comes with it, don't forget you can go to thedailyishow.com. We put out a newsletter every single Sunday. One just went out yesterday morning. Another great one, I think, is episode or edition number 28 at this point, issue number 28 at this point. So we've been doing it for a while now. If you want to learn more about the show, if you're just finding us for the first time, welcome. You can always join us live in the chat on YouTube at 10 a.m. Eastern. We do this Monday through Friday. Like I said, you could also sign up for that free newsletter if you want to dive even deeper into these topics. And one last thing I'll mention that's just a little different that's been going on over the last 2 weeks is we're right in the middle of OpenAI's 12 days of OpenAI, which means for 12 days, they've been announcing 12 weekdays. They've been announcing something new, some large things like Sora being released and O1 coming out of preview, some smaller ones that had to do more with like Apple Intelligence and things we kind of already knew. But every day has been interesting, and we've been doing our live reactions to that. So come on back today for a second live show at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. If you want to play along with us, we'll basically bring up the OpenAI announcement. We'll watch it live with you, and then we'll give you our quick reactions to that as well. And that will be going on the rest of this week. It finishes on this Friday. So we have days 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Yeah, of it. So Monday through Friday of this week. Okay, that's everything. Let's dive into this topic. Now, I find this really, really interesting. This is a cool prompt a post from Ethan Mollick. And I want to just read it really quick so we can just hear what his exact wording was. And he said, a whole bunch of systems that depend on effort being costly are going to be breaking. Academic journals are seeing this happen already. So we can kind of dive into this idea. And, I went back and forth with Perplexity on this as well. And I finally, like my first 2 or 3 results from Perplexity, I'm like, yeah, you're not really, that's not the idea. Let's hit this from a different angle. Let's hit it from a different angle. And the third try, I really got some good feedback on this that I definitely want to share along the way. But basically what, Ethan Mollick was saying here are, I think somebody mentioned in the comments below his post talked about like law firms, the idea that it could potentially now be easy enough to have AI generate hundreds, thousands of new lawsuits. Now, maybe on the other side of that, you could also have AI bots, as Karl mentioned in the comments in Slack, and say, well, couldn't I also have hundreds, if not thousands of AI bots in the future to combat such lawsuits? But more the point to it is right now, you often pay lawyers, law firms and stuff for their areas of expertise in a certain area. And they often have a high billable hour. They're consultants ultimately with huge levels of expertise. And you're paying them per hour to review court documents, whatever the case is, and all that. So what happens when you have industries like that? Not just one example, we'll talk about others, where AI is basically making it possible in the near future, if not already, like Ethan Mollick was talking about, if academic journals and that system being flooded. What do you do when effort isn't something you can necessarily charge for? And that's really the bigger conversation of today. When effort isn't something that you could place a dollar figure on. Consultants are going through this, like they said, scientific journals. Like we talked about law, there's a lot of other areas, but just think about how many consulting agencies charge for a per hour basis. And what Perplexity was saying, what I was trying to push it to get to is like, let's think about this differently. It basically was saying, if we don't move towards value-based, if more consultancies do not start focusing more on value-based results, they're going to lose out because the market may shift. Algorithms might change pricing models along the way. And simply saying that I bill at an X dollar amount per hour may be difficult in the future if the people who are consuming this know that, well, I can get an AI to do that faster. So just sort of where my head is, but I want to stop there. Jyunmi, Karl, jump in here. Tell me where your brain went as we sort of were prepping and thinking about both the post from Ethan Mollick as well as like sort of our prep and stuff.
There's two things that came to mind. I'll go through the first one. Is that it got me thinking when at the London Dev Day, I think it was in October, Sam Altman was talking about when he was asked a question about agents, he started talking about, well, everyone starts going at it at a very, very narrow point of view. So everyone, like, the thing that keeps coming up is book my travel, book my vacation, book my restaurants. Then he goes, well, but that's fine, but you're missing the point where even in that example, instead of it trying to just book one for you, why don't we have 300 of these things booking 300 restaurants? But that's ridiculous. But what if you as a business had 300 of these things taking these reservations all at the same time? But then he goes, the better example would be if you had think about it as a senior employee that you ask it to do something, it would go off and do it and come back. Times that by however many things you would have. And I think it keeps coming back to the concept of Lumiere's law, where right now, and it's every single technology. We've seen this where we're still looking at this from current technology and current operations. So example would be radio to TV. When TV came out, the initial points of initial things of TV where they were just putting the radio announcer on TV to talk about something. That's not the use of TV, but people back then couldn't conceptualize how to use TV in a way. Same thing with photo and video. When video came out, moving picture came out, the first things that came on were moving pictures were like hundreds of images of photos in a row, because that's the only thing they could think of before they actually got going. And say a more recent example would be the internet, where the first websites were just online versions of newspapers and brochures. You didn't really have all the dynamics things that people can think about. So I think right now, maybe a few of us are starting to move that way, but there's no examples for us to piggyback off of. It's brand new territory. And I go back to like in businesses today, all I could hear is, oh, we're just going to use AI to enhance and augment, or in some cases try to replace the processes that we're using, but it's still the same process. I love the example of AI SDRs. So you're still going out and cold calling, you're still going out and cold emailing, but you're just replacing the person with an AI to do it for you. But the act of cold calling and the operations of trying to go out doing business that way, outbound, is still there. There hasn't been a shift in, oh, wait, do I need to do this thing? Do I need to raise as much money? Do I need that many employees? Like, I was always thinking, we always talk about the one person, $1 billion valued company. Well, the typical SaaS or technology company would be raise money from venture capital, hire a bunch of people, market growth, go to market, raise more capital, grow. Well, with all the tools that are available now, do you need to hire all those people? Can a group of 5 to 10 people do the work of 30 to 40, 40 to 50? And do you need to raise that much? Or maybe you don't need to raise at all you can bootstrap that stuff. And so that's kind of where my mind went. It's like, we're not looking at this in its native form yet because we just don't know. We're still trying to fit it into our perspective of where the world is today. But I think we need to start moving to a completely different form of operations, completely different form of doing things. But it's very hard to do.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Karl, because I think that's what one of those things that I really liked about, or I really like about AI in general, is we get to reanalyze all of our systems, all of our processes. Is the process that we have in place now the most optimal system for accomplishing X, Y, and Z? And I really think that in most of those situations, it's probably going to be no. Those systems and processes came out of, and those efficiencies from the way that we did those processes came from building upon previous tech, previous experience. This is where we're at now. So why aren't we looking at with this new technology, which we all admit is a huge, lack of a better term, game changer, right? In every aspect of our lives, that why don't we look at all of those systems and say, hey, okay, now that we have this new infrastructure, this new tool, this new technology, can we take a look at all of the systems and go, okay, this no longer needs to be done. The whole reason why we did this was because we didn't have this, this, and this. Now we have that, so we don't need to do that anymore. Do we need the current hierarchical structure? They're introduced, not necessarily just top down. There's circular structures and cell structures and things like that in terms of business, business infrastructure. So let's take that one step further. I like the idea of the one person, $1 billion valuation, because it empowers everyone to do whatever they really want, right? And I know this is going to get into dreamer area, but if you have the tool, if your barrier to entry on whatever passion you have is, I don't have enough resources and I don't have enough people, and it's going to require me to bootstrap or raise money or anything like that, these kinds of tools lowers that barrier by a drastic amount. There's so many open source tools out there. Like, I was just looking at how many AI video generation tools are out there. I mean, we just hear all of the big name ones, right? But there's tools that will help you generate a base image and use that image to generate a video, and you can use these masking tools, like Comfy UI, to put those effects on top of your own performance. I was just watching this video the other day where this one creator, he did some stuff in his living room and then just created and masked over the entire scene that he was creating. Does it still need work? Absolutely. But that would require an immense amount of time and effort and people to do with today's methods, right? So this is just an example of how you can do more. You can do more with just yourself, and I think that's where the greatest gain is, beyond the fact of, like you said, Karl, where 10 people can do the work of 60 people, or like that.
I want to bring the conversation back more to because I get what you guys are saying. You're talking about it more from, oh, I'm the company and I can do more with less people. And I just watched another news story about that where I can't remember the name of it, Rycor, maybe I can't remember the name of the company. And they said, well, we just stopped hiring. We're just trying to, normally we would replace 20% because that's normal role or, turnover or whatever. And we stopped doing that. But there's profit sharing and, it's good for the people who stay, basically. I just saw a whole story about that. It's not that it's not related to what we're talking about today, but I really do think that's the company side of what you're talking about. I think more what I thought, at least for me, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. And by the way, Beth has joined us too. So welcome, Beth. But the way I saw today's topic was, and what I saw from Ethan Mollick was, hey, if your focus of your business, of your industry is built around the idea of effort being the thing that you charge for, then you're going to have trouble selling your services in the future, potentially due to AI disruption. Now, I think we could all raise our hand and go, whoa, not in this industry. And probably we might put an asterisk on one particular industry or sub-industry and say, yes, for right now, you're right. It doesn't appear like in AI, or in journals and research journals and stuff like that, or law or consulting. And we might say, you're right. It doesn't appear right now like AI has an immediate impact, but it might, or maybe we don't see it, or maybe it's the outlier, whatever. I mean, there's going to be ones that don't fit in to this particular model. But this idea of, and I'll read it off of like what came back from Perplexity. It says, the labor theory of value has long suggested that prices should reflect the, quote, toil and trouble, unquote, involved in production. This manifests in several key areas. So there mentions the law firms traditionally bill by the hour, with clients paying premium rates per perceived effort. Consultants charge based on time spent rather than value delivered. Creative agencies bill based on hours of work rather than the impact the creatives will impact, right?
Yeah.
So there it talks about the disruption of effort, cost reduction. AI can generate content, legal documents, creative works, near zero marginal cost. Traditional verification systems are becoming overwhelmed, which is, I think, what Ethan Mollick was referring to, overwhelmed by the volume of AI generated content. We probably also see this in job boards and hiring, and because now I can turn on an AI assistant that will help me apply for 1,000 jobs. Is that good or bad? Is that good for me? Is it bad for them? Does it just overwhelm the entire system? Removal of effort and barriers of creating talent across multiple sectors. So last thing I'll say, Beth, and then I know we want to jump in, but this is where it comes down to here. Give me 1 second. It says impact on industries. The flood of AI generated content is overwhelming traditional quality filters. Publishers and media companies can no longer rely on effort as a barrier to entry. The value of human created content is being challenged. Traditional hourly billing models are becoming obsolete as AI automates routine tasks. Companies that maintain effort-based pricing will lose access to top talent. The focus is shifting to results and value rather than time spent. Sorry, I just want to get that last part in because that really, to me, encapsulates this conversation today. Go ahead, Beth.
Okay. So it does encapsulate it, but it's also missing, I think, the point, because that part of the conversation today, I feel like is something that people have heard, right? We are that message gets out a little bit more, but the other part of that is what is shifting that we don't have guardrails for, right? So what is when lawyers are free, when the cease and desist email is free or letter is free, or those sorts of things, what does that heighten that we're not prepared for? And academic journals are experiencing that right now. Right? They're overwhelmed with the number of submissions. We've been seeing those stories, not just academic journals. We've been seeing those stories all year. I think you're right that the job market and the number of applications that are coming in is an example of that too, although we're not seeing quite that number of stories in the same way. But like, what's coming, right? When everyone can like do some lawyer thing for absolute free, what happens then, right? What are those things?
So I was listening to the Y Combinator show, and they had a really good model layout. So I think I was still young at this, but I remember my dad in the 90s, when you bought software, and you paid for it. That's it. If you upgrade, to get an upgrade or an enhancement or whatever, you have to buy the next version. You get it and it's localized. Then came along software as a service, right? So you keep paying a month in updates. Then came pay as you go. So you see AWS, Microsoft Azure, some of these companies where you're paying just for use. But I think now what you're seeing, or what we're starting to see more of, is outcome based. So it isn't pay as you go, is what can you do? What's the outcome? And that's what I'm paying for, not the tool and the tech, because that
Right.
is decreased. But what can you do for me? I remember, so I was sitting on a panel. It was in front of a bunch of marketing agencies, and someone asked, "Hey, who here uses AI for client work?" Pretty much the whole room hand up. Then the person asked, "Do you do you charge? Do you adjust your chart, or do you adjust your billing based on that AI use?" No one put their hand up, and everyone's like, "Okay, I think that was the point where it's like you used to charge, like you were saying, Brian, per hour, per time on whatever activity that
Wait,
role." Yeah,
thousands of consultants still do. Yeah.
and as more and more people get wise to this, they're like, "Wait a minute." I think that's the explanation even our business has, right? Because my business partner, he goes around and he says, "I can go out and create your strategy in seconds." And I was like, "You have to explain." And yeah, I was like, "You have to explain after that," saying, because the person be like, "Well, why am I paying you?" It's like, well, it's not that. It's not the strategy, the physical output. It's everything that went into it. All the hours that we spent putting in, like,
course.
our knowledge into that just happens. We run it through AI and it takes out, like, much faster. I think that's the type of explanation, right? So when you have a new collateral, when you have a new website, when you have a new legal opinion, whatever that is, and it's been run through a Claude or Chat GPT or whatever it's been run through, and it's taking minutes. I think we have to the new paradigm is thinking about it's the outcome, and maybe you don't even get paid for the actual strategy. You get paid for the execution, or maybe you get paid for, did our campaign actually do X, 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 X? And you get a percentage of that if it works. If it doesn't, then we don't.
Yeah, I've always liked the plumber example. So plumber shows up, takes a look at the issue, fix it in 15 minutes, charges you $300.
Yeah.
Right. And you're like, well, you were only here for 15 minutes. Why are you charging me $300? It's like, because it took me, it's 30 years of experience knowing exactly what every piece is and how it interacts and how I can deduce and determine what the issue is. And it takes me 15 minutes. AI is the same way. Here's a tool that has, years of experience with this information, and combined with how I know X, Y, and Z, and with this new tool, I can solve that problem in 15 minutes. That if this was 10 years ago, I would have, it would have taken me 3 hours or 10 hours, and I'd still be charging you $300. So I think that's the crux there, is people's just got to switch that perspective of that's why I've always liked project-based, pricing and things like that. This is what this project's going to take. And there's less explanation there because this is what I'm charging you to do this work, get this result. Like
the other side of that, Jimmy, though, obviously is, and the reason why there's hourly based or overages based and stuff, especially with like Scale, which does consulting and stuff like that, is because if you're not good at if you're not really dialed in to the work that you do, it's very easy as the person delivering on the project to spend 2x the amount of hours you intended to spend, and your billing rate goes down to $25 an hour or something like that, something ridiculously low. And you go, wow, I could have almost sat still and made more money than I am currently doing this. And so like lots of consultants get into this, especially independent contractors, where the project at the outset, because of, maybe not poor questioning, there's a lot of reasons why this happens. And there's not a really defined case. Sometimes also the consultant just says yes to too much when they shouldn't have. They should have said, nope, this is the defined aspects of our SOW. And anything you want beyond these parameters is an additional cost because this is all we've agreed to. And that doesn't always happen because people want to get new business and they want to make customers happy and all that. So it's very complex, right? And I love your analogy of the plumber. The one I always go to is the locksmith. It's the same thing. Well, you lock yourself out of your car and a locksmith comes up with a Slim Jim. It's a 3-minute process, maybe. They look at your door and they go, and they pull out the Slim Jim and they go, geek. You've already paid them, by the way. You prepaid because they weren't getting in the car and driving out to you in your locked car without doing it or whatever. And you could be mad about that or not, but like they got you in your car and they did it with efficiency. And to your point, is their areas of expertise. So when you go to AI, that's exactly it. Now it's going to go on both sides. Not only are, to your point, Karl, the people doing the work going to have to do a better job of conveying that, yes, I am going to use AI as part of this solution. Yes, that does mean that I'm going to be able to work at higher levels of efficiency that you've ever seen before. No, if you had the same AI tools, you would not be able to do the same thing that I can. I have the expertise. That's what you're paying me to put this expertise in there. It might happen faster than you've seen before. And you may think, hey, I want to pay less because it got done faster. But what I need to convey to you is that given the same AI tools, you probably do not have the same expertise as I do, which is AI plus my master in my craft, my expertise, jointly together makes me a formidable person to charge and get this done. To me, it's no different than somebody coming up with their phone and me saying, like, I always mention my friend Angela Morris, who's Angela Murray, who's a photographer, and I've known her since college. And the idea that I could pick up my phone and go, well, I have a camera too, so now we're both photographers. And she'd say, not even close. And she'd be right? So she had the ability to do that. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up, but that's where it is.
Like any company, right? Especially like if you are, and you know this very well, Brian, and anyone who's worked in marketing and sales, everyone is a marketer. Everyone's a salesperson. They think they are, right? Until they actually do it. I think the danger that people are starting to think of, and this is where the consultants and the professional services have to start thinking about is, if you do use AI, there's two things that you've got to think about. One is the expertise, the initial expertise, either the education, the experience that you bring. That's part one. And then two, I think from an AI perspective too, yes, you could go into ChatGPT and write a prompt that says, hey, give me a legal opinion on, are you a lawyer now? Are you a this? And then I think the tough thing coming from an AI consultant perspective is, oh, why can't I just go into ChatGPT and ask this? You can, but the difference is the hours we've spent understanding how to use all these different components to ensure that the outcome meets the expectation and leads to the connection to the business goal.
Yeah.
What you could do, sure, you could prompt it, but let's compare our output versus your output any day of the week. And just like the photographer, it won't be close, right?
That's what I think is going to happen, honestly, Karl. I mean, just to get to, and I want to get to the comments because we have some really great comments too from our folks in the chat. But I absolutely, I think it is the digital camera on your phone conundrum, if you will. We talk about conundrums in the newsletter, so by all means, sign up for the newsletter, and you'll get a AI conundrum in there. And I love conundrums because they don't have easy answers. They could go this way, could go that way, and you could argue. The fun parts about good conundrums is you could sit in a room for fun and argue both sides of it for hours and probably go, I don't know, we're a little this way or that way. You have to look at it from both sides. I definitely think it's going to be challenging for consultants in a lot of different industries as the buyers, the clients go, hey, we have the same AI tools as you. So you know what? We're going to cancel this consulting contract with you because we've got somebody in-house that's going to do it. And we're going to go as the consultants and go, I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to get the same results as working with me. And they're going to go, thanks. And they're going to go do it. And then they're going to come back 6 months later and go, we messed up. We should have stayed with you. You had an area of expertise plus AI. We thought due to ignorance, essentially. Not in a bad way, I don't mean that, but due to ignorance of what you can do plus AI. We thought we would be to deploy this in-house, and now actually we need to bring this back out to consulting. But I definitely think there's going to be a disruption as more and more companies get rid of third party, get rid of consulting agencies, bring stuff in-house, because they're going to go, what in the hell do I need to pay you for if I have ChatGPT, to your point, Karl, that I can just write a prompt that it'll do it for me?
So there's two things to that too. There's one piece, and from an AI consulting, and we're in it. The thing that irritates us is like a bunch of other companies that say they do AI, which brings
Well, that too.
right. And then when you hire them, you're like, oh my goodness, you don't know anything, and you only know this piece. Because I think we all know AI is not just ChatGPT. It's not about prompting. It's not like the gamut is it's a lot of different things that you can do beyond just using a large language model, right? And there's even there's intricacies in using a large language model that a lot of people don't know about, and how to do those things, right? So I guess that's part one. I think the second part here is me and my business partner were talking about this. I was looking at JP Morgan Chase and Wells Fargo, right? You have what happens when they both have relatively the same level of AI advisor to them, that they have the same powerful tools. What happens when you're one would think you're probably going to get the same output. It doesn't matter. You pick Wells Fargo, you look JP Morgan, it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
I think though, right? This is where it all rolls back into the human. The human is different, and that's the deciding factor. Customer service, how they operate. Both AI tools could say, we recommend you this. But then knowing the nuances, knowing the situation, like it's all the experience and intuitiveness that these people in these companies, either through experience or understanding, can make that difference. And that's why my dad was always talking to me. It's like, I love this stuff. I wish I could have this stuff, but I could, he thinks, I was like, I could still kick its ass. I was like, how? And then he was telling me, it's like, well, this is one way to do it. And remember, and he was even telling me, remember that these are just predictions. And I was like, correct. And he's like, they're just right. But I'm like, but there are all these little nuances. And some people are like, well, it's all gonna be trained on that. It's like, but that's when the ingenuity of creativity of humans, I still think, can outdo the AI, because the AI is still gonna take the average or maybe the above average and try to fit everything into the same thing, versus some creative and nuanced thing for individual people. That's where the difference is. So it's an interesting point of view that he was going.
So one of the things that you're referencing in this, and that is important but rarely talked about, is the act of the human as the editor, right? You can get AI to create so much stuff. The piece where the human is now really important. That's why you have experts. That's why you want to be, if you're hiring in-house, you need to like really hire somebody who is like an expert both in the AI and the other thing, because your role now, the human difference is their discernment. And part of that discernment is being able to understand when AI is giving you something brilliant, but it's the most probable, and therefore it's given that to 1,000 other businesses. And if you are only looking at what your business produces, you're not catching that, right? That's what we hear from the thousands of job applications that happen. All the cover letters are identical,
Mhm.
right? But you don't know that because it did a pretty good cover letter for you, right? So those sorts of things are also the piece. And the discernment factor isn't something that AI can do right now, in terms of what's the likelihood that you think this is identical to something that somebody else got from this prompt?
Yeah, and if the algorithms are picking all that up, then you're not standing out at all by moving faster. I mean, God knows we talk about this in sales nonstop, which is that, yes, we are fully aware that there are AI tools that can send out 1,000 cold emails a day. No, that's not going to help you convert more deals. You're not going to get 2% on that. You're not. You still need humans in the loop for that, because it's doing AI, it's using AI for the wrong reasons, which is just mass volume as opposed to personalization at scale. And Karl, going back to your example, I mean, I ran right into this when I owned my CrossFit gym. I mentioned this on the show that I had a CrossFit gym for 5 years, but for those who are new. And so with a CrossFit gym, the way it worked, at least in that model, was that I was an affiliate. I paid $2,000 per year for the right to use the term CrossFit in my name, right? However, I did not have a territory. And a lot of people mistook this when they got into CrossFit, because for a while there in the early 2010s, like when I opened mine, they were populating fast. I was one of 13 in my area. By the time I sold my gym, I was one of 65 in a large area around Tampa Bay, right? So they'd grown considerably. Now, there was nothing saying CrossFit, the parent company, would not stop somebody who opened up in a gym quite literally next door to mine. They would not stop you. They would not say, hey, Brian owns one 0.05 miles away from you. Like, you might want to find a different location. CrossFit's answer, because Greg Glassman, who is the founder, was a libertarian, and his answer was, I mean, if you lose your athletes to that gym, I guess do better. That was his answer. And people were like, what do you mean? You just literally siphon people. And he's like, I do better. Don't lose your clients. Like, be better at what you do. And so I think there's going to be a lot of this, Karl, where people are like, yeah, that's the way you better be thinking about this is, how are you going to differentiate through your customer service, which is uniquely human, but can be enhanced by AI? How are you going to approach business differently? How are you going to use the AI tools in new and novel ways that add to your level of expertise to make you be a cut above the rest? And how are you going to get your message out there? So to your point, Beth, it doesn't sound like everybody else. How do you be the Elle Woods who's, applying for Harvard and put it on a pink resume? You know what I mean? Like, you have to think outside the box. And if AI is going to be predicting, it's going to a lot of times predict inside the box, the average of averages, right? And that's what we have to fight against. And so, yes, use AI tools. Yes, use it for more efficiencies. Yes, absolutely use it to save your customers money. I've done that many times over the last year, where I've gone back to a customer and said, I can give you the same thing, but cheaper. And here's why: because you'll lose no quality over the line. That's great. I love doing that. It takes me less time. Clients super happy about it. This is what people are going to have to fight back against.
It's interesting, because when you talk about all these professional services, why would you pick one accounting firm over the other? Why would you pick one marketing or sales firm over the other? Why would you pick one law firm over the other? They kind of do all the same thing. Then they have the AI component to it. They all have the same tools. So why wouldn't you just go with an AI shop? I think we're all underestimating the need for people to have that human connection and human experience, regardless of what. And we want the right outcome for our business. So we've all fired an agency because it didn't do this or didn't do that. But we've also fired an agency. Like, I just don't like these dudes. Like, I don't like these people that I don't like the way they work. And some people work better with different types of people than other types of people, right? So there is, to me, the competition isn't going to be about which tools you can use. Right now, I do believe, as in terms of AI, you have to showcase going beyond, like, your depth of knowledge either is really deep into one, or you can cross into different things. Because I also, just meeting business after business after business, it's not every single AI use, automation, process, workflow is so unique to a business, because a business is its kind of own ecosystem that does something a certain way. You could have 4 businesses in the same industry, completely different way of working, same hierarchy and structure, but like their processes are, everyone is kind of their own weird and strange way.
Yep.
And if you want to involve AI into that, I feel like it has to be tailored to that unique working group, you can't just slap on. I saw this TikTok of this guy just like giving like digital assistance to that was his business, and I was like, yeah, you could do that and you could get away with that for maybe a year or two, but like the what makes businesses like other people unique would be, hey, how does that digital assistant connect to, how can you tailor that specifically to how that business operates? Then you have to start looking at their privacy, looking at their data, looking at who they're targeting, who they're not, where this data is coming from. There's so many nuances that you can't just start slapping third-party tools or even your own proprietary tools. So when you see all these tools come down, it's like, this just doesn't work for this company because of this reason. It just doesn't work. It theoretically it should, but it just won't because of this is how they do it. So you have to be very open-minded. And this is to me where the human experience comes in. It's like you have to have a breadth of knowledge to be able to pick the right or even reconfigure the right solution. And that's where right now I believe we're in. And I still believe we're going to have to do that going forward because all these tools are going to be equal and everyone's going to have access to them. Some more than others, but you all have for $20, you all have the PhD level reasoning in your pocket. But how the ability to be able to discern that and provide the unique value to the company, that's where it starts separating still.
And this goes back to Eric said it in the comments. By the way, you guys are awesome in the comments today. It's so much value in there. I want to get to some of Gwen's comments and stuff like that. I think it was Eric. Sorry, I'm just scrolling really quick. No, I'm sorry. It was Greg. Aren't we looking at the end of experts? Can't your experience in area of expertise and processes be digitized? And I think, Greg, that does go back to what Karl is saying, kind of what our conversation is. I don't speak for anybody else, but no, I don't think so. I don't think we are looking at the end of experts. We are certainly, to Beth's point, need to be thinking differently about future business. I think it was Beth. I apologize if that was somebody else, but thinking differently about how we look at future business, because we will have higher levels of expertise. But we've gone through this before. Businesses had encyclopedias and could quickly reference in encyclopedias. God knows they probably had people in their office who were really good at getting to the encyclopedia pages and needed to faster. That's a form of efficiency that an expert might have had back in the day of just simply using the books on the shelf. We could also look at that for law firms. I mean, I imagine it's not for lack of information about law. Jesus, it's not that, right? If you're really good at what you do at a law firm, I would imagine you have, not what the assistants for lawyers. Anyway, paralegals who are blazing fast at going, I know exactly where to get that answer. I know exactly where to get that answer. And if you replace that person, you would literally lose efficiency if they left the job and somebody else came in, because they have a built-in expertise of where to go and search out that information. So now we're going from encyclopedias on a shelf through the internet age and Google being at all of our fingertips to even faster internet and Wi-Fi connections that said now you can have not just the internet, but you can basically have it anywhere you're standing on the world's surface, on Earth's surface, right out to the middle of the ocean now. I mean, quite literally the middle of the ocean on a sailboat, and you could still have the knowledge of the internet at your fingertips. And now we're in this new age of where we're looking at AI and we're saying, not only do you have knowledge, you have digital expertise. You can now put on the hat of somebody you have no business putting on a hat of, and not just say, hey, how do I do this? But actually literally embodying or digitally embodying this expert and having them join the conversation. The one person, $1 billion company, you plus many experts that are AI. And so it's not that I think expertise is going away, because to everybody's point on this panel today in the conversation, there's unique ways of looking at this and looking at things from different angles. Or to Karl's point about every business is a little unique, and what Karl does and what I do, although we both work with clients and we both do consulting, there's differences there, right? Like with the way we talk to sales organizations and sales teams. And you're right, Karl, like you would think they're all like, everybody uses Salesforce, everything's the same. Nope. Even if all my clients use Salesforce, so you know this, Beth, they're not the same. They have different processes. I can't just give everybody the best cold email. Why? Why can't I just give everybody the best cold email? Because it doesn't work like that. So you need that expertise. And this is my long way of saying, Greg, of like my thought process is, I don't think expertise are going away. But if people are just relying on AI tools and that's what they do in their business, yes, they could be replaced, because what else are they adding to the whole? If their ability is just to be the encyclopedia, well, I thank you. I can replace you. But if you have expertise on how to use those encyclopedias, that's still really, really valuable, because you're valuable to my company. At least that's the way I see it. That's the expertise.
I just want to add to that point too. I think like it's easy to become let's take AI consulting. It's easy to come and be like, hey, this is what I do. I'm going to be able to, do automations and build digital assistants and cool. But I'm like, the really good ones that I've seen or I've worked with, it's like, hey, can you take this business problem and can we see the outcome, and can we leverage AI to help you achieve that outcome, right? And can we do it better than anyone else? Whatever tool we use, you're still trying to help the business achieve this thing. It doesn't matter and there's some times when they're like, that's not an AI problem. That's a strategy or a business strategy problem. We shouldn't even be here. But this is some things that we would recommend. Or that's a sales problem. That's a marketing problem. Call us back when you figured that problem out, because we're just wasting your time. Like, it's being able to discern and to understand from a business level what makes sense, what doesn't. And again, back to the human experience and human connection with people, that to me still separates versus just we'll implement whatever AI tool you want because we're good at it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Greg said, do you folks think you might be looking at this through a Taylorism lens? Solutions means something different now. I just wanted to bring that up because I don't know what that means. I don't know what Taylorism lens, but I wasn't sure if anybody else knew what that meant. Because I would love to answer that, Greg, that maybe yes, I don't know, but I don't know what a Taylorism lens is.
Let's go ask Perplexity what that means.
Yeah, no, I know. If I had more time, if we had more time in the show, I would 100% be throwing into Perplexity and trying to get that quick result on that. Okay, well, like I said, Gwen, Justin, Eric, Greg, as I said, Jude, and Cisco. I mean, we've had so many great points of in the comments here, and I wish I could get to all of them, but just know that we're reading them on the side of our screen quite literally, and using those as helping us through the conversation, so they don't go unnoticed, even if we're not able to throw them up on the screen. Gwen was asking about digital twins. Greg said, "Oh, sorry, I hate that. Sorry about the Taylor thing." Yeah, sorry. I want to know, Greg. I just don't know what that means with the Taylorism thing. But I'm glad that you guys are all in the comments, because like I said, it informs our conversations. It helps us out to it. Any other, as we wrap up here, any other thoughts on this particular topic? I'm sure it's something we're going to keep coming back to, this idea of expertise. What are you selling? And really back to the idea of, here's what I would say. If your business, and when you look at your website, if it's based on hourly rate or effort being exchanged for money, this might be a good time to reevaluate that. And only you are going to know what's right for your business. I'm certainly not going to say, hey, you're doing this wrong, or it needs to be value-based. It might be a good time, though, to reevaluate and take a really deep look at what you're doing and how you're conveying value. Because if it's just through hourly and expertise, you might find that you're on the outside looking in a short while, depending on how AI directly impacts your specific industry. And again, to Karl's point and everybody else, every business is going to have that conversation for themselves. Yes, maybe lean on third-party consultants and people to help you through that. Like Karl said, to sometimes say, you don't need us, you need somebody else right now. We're not the money you should be spending. Sometimes that's the greatest conversation you can have as a consultant, is to say, don't pay me because I'm not your right solution right now. But I will be, but you got to go fix this first problem. And so I think it's just a good place for people to pause as we get to the end of 2024 and just look at their business and say, what am I conveying to my potential clients? Is it that I have expertise and you should pay me X amount of dollars per hour for my expertise? Or is it that I have a solution and you should pay me for said solution and the value that provides and the outcomes that come along with it? it's a good question to have. I think everybody can do well by looking internally and seeing what they have. Okay. Eric is saying my prediction for today is the new DALI model. We'll see on that. He's referring to the 12 days of OpenAI. That will be happening at 1 p.m. Eastern. If you want to come back and join whoever's available at that time, we'll do a live viewing of it, and then we'll give you our opinions of it. We've been doing that for the first 7 days, and we're going to, like I said at the top of the show, we're going to be doing it the rest of this week. So we'll have a normal show at 10 a.m. Eastern, just like you're watching right now, if you're watching it live, and then we'll do another show at 1 p.m. to talk about the 12 days OpenAI. The rest of this week on Tuesday, tomorrow, we're going to be talking about Google's massive shipment drops. I mean, Google, never mind OpenAI, they've been getting a lot of love publicly, but so has Google, and rightfully so. Google has not slowed down. They're not taking December off. Holy moly, they're right in there with Pace doing stuff. So we're going to talk about that, their new models, Flash 1.5, all the cool stuff that they have going on. Notebook LM has new things and a Pro model and revamp. But they have all sorts of stuff going on at Google. Wednesdays, the news is always. Thursday, we're going to be talking about ChatGPT projects, and who knows, maybe some new announcement that happens between now and Thursday. Projects just recently came out, and I wouldn't sleep on that. It seems like a really easy update, but there's just some really, really cool things I think people should be focusing on when it comes to ChatGPT projects. So we'll do our deep dive on Thursday. And then Friday's going to be our 2-week recap. That's where we have a chance to look back. Actually, that'll be a great one because we'll have had all of the 12 days of OpenAI at that point. No, we'll be shy of just one of them. We'll be shy of the last one. Whatever the big announcement on 12 is, we'll miss that one. But nonetheless, we'll be able to look back at the last 2 weeks of discussions, including this one, and have really great conversations. So thank you again to everybody in the comments. Yeah, any quick predictions on today before we go on the announcement? Eric says DALI 4 or whatever's out next. What do you guys?
I'm going to be the downer and say it'll be the Microsoft commercial. They had a good one on, yeah. So
okay,
start off the week low so that you can end the week high. So.
Well, they started last week with Sora, so we'll see.
I want us to be having snarky comments. I think we have a better conversation when we're extremely disappointed and we just start like talking.
I wasn't there that day. Your video was funny that day because you guys were so disappointed in what came out. I was watching it on my couch literally that night, laughing along with you guys. And also I commented, I have to admit this, I commented back to Beth from my couch on something that was not live and I was not a part of. I was so used to talking to you guys that I literally talked to my TV and I was like, you're an idiot. She can't hear you. Beth, do you have any predictions?
I'm with Eric. I think we're gonna get DALI today.
I hope so. That's my. I've been saying that almost every day. I do want a DALI up there. I know we have all these.
At some point, it may be correct, right? If we just definitely.
Broken clock is correct 2 times a day, right? That's right. Yeah.
Okay. And Beth was accurate for the last one. Beth called it for the last one. So we're on a streak here. So we'll see.
Okay, listen, that's it for today. Thanks for everybody hanging out. I see the LOLs in the comments and stuff like that. All right, guys, we will come back and see you in just a few hours, about 2 hours, when they do the day 8 of the OpenAI 12 days of. When.
Aloha.